Our leader, let's go back. Our leader was born in Denver in the year 1949. It's been stated that he was the last child to be born in the state of Colorado in a log cabin. I had my people look at that and can tell you definitively that that was not true. And I challenge you to find a baby picture that's as cute as this with a more happy baby. Those of you who are grandparents who have gone into the baby Gap store will see many posters of baby and infants in different clothing by the Gap. If the Gap stores were in operation at the time this picture was taken, our leader would have definitely been a Gap baby. He is a great outdoorsman and he loves to fish, but I picked this picture because of the gentleman on the right, who is Larry's grandfather, and it points out that he comes from great Western stock. Larry was very active in athletics, and if you know Larry, you know that he never stands still. This is the only picture you'll see where he's standing still. This picture was taken when he graduated from high school, and it would appear that he is planning to become a lawyer. But after entering the University of Colorado in Boulder, he changed his direction and went into medicine. He attended the University of Colorado School of Medicine in Denver, and then followed that with an internship at the Hopkins, and then returned to University Hospitals in Denver for his general surgery, and then proceeded to go to Ralph Millard's program in Miami from 1979 to 1981. You can see that Larry is not a car man. He's got this broken down Mercury Cougar, and I've found that during this stage he was very frightened about sleeping by himself. And you can see that he's asleep, but his dog has his eye open to protect Larry during his sleeping time. Now, this picture was taken when he was a resident in Miami with Dr. Millard. I've just given you the chronology of the time that he spent going through his educational process. And there are very few pictures in that set of pictures that were sent to me by his secretary, which means that it's been sanitized or Obamanized, and we cannot, I can't give you pictures of some times during his career which probably indicated rather risky behavior. But you see that he has a great form as a tennis player, and the Miami Millard residents always told me that they worked hard and did not play. It was my impression that they played hard and did not work. But Larry was able to survive the residency and go back to Denver to practice plastic surgery. He has been in numerous organizations. He's been in leadership in numerous organizations. And this is the picture taken in 2004 when Bruce Cunningham was handing the gavel over to Larry as chair of the American Board of Plastic Surgery, which was a very successful year for the board. This is Larry's true love. He doesn't like cars, as we've seen in the picture, but he does like motorcycles. And this is Heidi on the back of the motorcycle, and I have the utmost respect for her courage to get on the bicycle with this guy. If you look at his head, he's got a leather cap on, and that would lead me to this picture, which is on one of his many trips to Sturgis, South Dakota. You see he has no hat. And it makes me believe that Larry played football without a helmet. When I first saw this picture, I said, that looks like Dick Cheney. And now, Dick Cheney and Larry have one thing in common, and that is that they say what they mean and they mean what they say. But I do believe our president is a better shooter. Larry's been on a zillion committees. He's been officers in many major organizations. He's published numerous papers and articles, and he's been chair of a division of plastic surgery. But his true love is the operating room. He does pediatric plastic surgery, including cleft lip and palate, craniofacial surgery, and maxillofacial trauma. And now it's with great pride and pleasure that I introduce to you the 84th president of this association, Larry Ketch.
That was great. Thank you. Thank you, Kenna. Members, URAP's representatives, spouses, and guests. Thank you. It's indeed distinctly difficult to express adequately my appreciation for this great honor and recognition. It really is the pinnacle of my career. Before beginning, let me congratulate all of you for being members of this organization and for all of your accomplishments, particularly the new members that were inducted yesterday. You are all superb individuals, and you're all great plastic surgeons. The history of this organization has been truly remarkable, and upon this, our 90th meeting, and moving towards the centennial anniversary of this most prestigious and oldest plastic surgery society in existence, is appropriate time for review and reflection. From its inception, this association has been dedicated to the fundamental values of integrity, advocating for high ethical conduct in all we do, scholarship dedicated to the conduct of research and lifelong learning, education, disseminating the most current and accurate knowledge in our specialty through our annual meeting, and to leadership by developing and guiding the direction of plastic surgery. These values dictate what and who we are, what we aspire to be, and they educate us along the way. Those of us here today are here because of our dedication and our adherence to these values. However, the mere recognition of these values will not distinguish this organization if we do not continually re-examine and rededicate ourselves to them. The most essential and highest standards of these ideals is integrity. In the very first paragraphs of Tolstoy's War and Peace, Anna Pavlova remarks to Prince Vasily, "How can we be well when moral sensibilities are so tormented? How in these times can anyone remain calm?" We similarly must be troubled by the moral and spiritual condition of our time, much of which is attributed to lost integrity. We are increasingly besieged in our lives and our profession by events that affect our values and threaten our integrity in a manner that's detrimental to society, ourselves, and to this specialty. This erosion is no more evident than with politicians in government who consistently lie to their constituents, businesses who conceal and perpetuate unethical and deceptive practices, evidence the recent turmoil in the housing industry and Wall Street, and biased journalists who unfairly and inaccurately report the news. In our own profession, we're confronted by evolving healthcare marketplace consolidation, the professional liability crisis, encroachment of scope of practice, and the impact of technology and the internet, to name just a few. The term art or calling has been replaced by trade, service by business, patient by client, and terms such as throughput have become commonplace in our hospitals. The injection of business management and administrative systems into medicine by hospital CEOs and their administrators have pressured practitioners to move away from their traditional values. And although money is unquestionably necessary to the provision of care, the primacy of a profit motive places us at odds with hospitals, the commercial and professional sector, and ourselves, and does not benefit the patient or the provider, and most of all, tests our integrity. We complain that market regulatory forces are corrupting medicine. However, the root of this corruption is a lack of integrity in response to those forces. Often our abuse of status and camouflage of our self-interest for both economic and personal purposes is hidden behind a shield of altruism, utilitarianism, and the guise of patient welfare. Witness such examples as the financial interactions of pharmaceutical companies and device manufacturers, the ordering of unnecessary diagnostic procedures or prescribing of unneeded medications for often unjustified reasons, such as patient demand, liability protection, quality of care, or to gain political and financial advantage for one's practice or with one's hospital. The times that there is less than truthful communication with patients and their families regarding appropriate informed consent for less than efficacious treatment, off-label use of drugs, or competence and self-limitation questions when we are asked, for instance, how many of these operations have you performed, doctor? The accurate and open discussion of malpractice or medical errors, the subtle and destructive competition by denigration of one's peers by what is said or not said to patients or other colleagues regarding a practitioner's abilities or character. The provision of less than truthful letters of recommendation for students, residents, colleagues. How many of us in academic medicine have seen that? The manipulation of timing of patient treatment decisions for personal convenience, or the maximization of billing by over-documentation of visits. These and many other issues have led to compromise in patient care, ethics, increased costs, deteriorating trust and image in the public eye, and decreasing professional work satisfaction. In this time of profound, rapid social and economic upheaval, these and many other perplexing conditions result in confusion, disagreement, and debate surrounding what common values and beliefs should guide our decisions and actions, and call for the relevancy and the nature of integrity to be reemphasized. Unfortunately, there's a disconnect between historical principles, actual motive, and public perception as to what medicine represents. Guidance has been provided by the universal ethical framework of the Hippocratic Oath, Sir Thomas Percival's Code of 1803, the American Medical Association's Code of Ethics, and recently the Physician Charter of the Medical Professionalism Project of the American Board of Internal Medicine and its foundation. And these are only a few. Yet conspicuously, the word of integrity is omitted from all of these and similar documents, except the latter, where it appears only once in the introduction, without explanation or elaboration. This is curious, as integrity is the foundation of our personal and professional action and the only salvation of our purpose for our patients, the next generation of physicians, and this society. Without integrity, the patient is powerless. Lack of attention to integrity, which the patients and the public equate with honesty, is the most important factor responsible for the increasing skepticism of physicians, the decline of public confidence in our profession, and results to a great extent in our exclusion by the government from true involvement in healthcare reform. Personal gain and self-interest and concern have all too frequently replaced the patient's interest. In many respects, so-called physicians' advocacy has become antithetical to patient care. At stake is the reputation and respect of ourselves, our profession, and this great specialty. As an additional consequence, we're losing two elements critical to the welfare of our patients: autonomy and self-regulation. And we're being forced into greater and more stringent accountability. Integrity is a subtle, difficult, complex, and multifaceted concept of which there are many definitions and much philosophical disagreement. Comprehension requires a lifetime of experience, observation, and reflection to identify and deepen one's knowledge of this precept. The origin of integrity is from the Latin integer, meaning whole or complete, and integritae, meaning soundness. The evolution through Middle English and Old French has produced many meanings and synonyms, including character, fiber, honesty, principle, truth. There are now broader and more specific meanings in data information, technology, business, and in a material sense representing being complete or sound from structural defects. Philosophically, it's been defined as a steadfast adherence to a strict moral or ethical code. These remarks will be confined to integrity as a moral concept and concentrate on its qualities of consistency, principle, honesty, truthfulness, and most importantly, the motivation for one's actions. Without constantly challenging our motivation to action and responding in decision to moral virtue with traits of honesty, truthfulness, sincerity, and commitment, one cannot truly possess personal integrity. Without analysis of motivation, even truly evil people can adhere to the foregoing principles and still be considered to have integrity. If we are observant, we all grapple with these issues of integrity daily, often being caught in a web of self-deception, justifying our behavior through specious, self-serving excuses and rationalizations. This is frequently driven out of utility, expediency, desire for advancement, competitive stress, or ego, with the long-term consequence of overconfidence in one's imperviousness to and that facilitates this loss of integrity. This conduct is reinforced by society's laissez-faire and tolerant attitude to individualism and to individual freedom. Such an approach has unfortunately permitted the development of a pluralism which fuels uncertainty and raises questions as to what particular action or point of view is correct, and produces a lack of clear-cut standards as to what is acceptable. This has led to acceptance of relativism in which there's really no objectivity but simply one's own point of view. These prevailing conditions provoke the erosion and abandonment of integrity, and furthermore, in the absence of any public debate or self-scrutiny, self-deception regarding correct courses of action further facilitate this loss, which is detrimental to both the individual and to the society. Justification of individual action cannot remain private, but must be capable of public examination and defense. As the philosopher Wittgenstein noted in his philosophical investigations, decision and action must appeal to something independent, or without which, as the author H. Jackson Brown said, integrity is what we do when we think no one is looking. Not only self but potential public questioning of motive must be considered to prevent secretive action that may not reflect appropriate moral choice. Related to this public scrutiny and equally important is that it must go beyond self-examination and introspection. It is a difficult choice for those who witness acts of breach. No one wishes to be an informer or to destroy a reputation. However, a person of integrity must be willing to reveal questionable acts, openly cognizant of the potential suffering that may be imposed to others. Silence does not uphold the obligation of integrity without exposure when a violation is recognized. Integrity is the fundamental basis and keystone of the ethical practice of medicine. It is our soul, and the practice of it is the best and only way to restore faith in medicine and potentially control back to the practitioner. There's no room for its subordination to ambition. It's more important than how smart or famous or powerful or rich you are, and more important than your reputation. It is what you are, not what people think you are. To quote Sir Francis Bacon, it is not what we profess, but what we practice that gives us integrity. It is above all character. As John Wooden, the famous UCLA basketball coach, once said, "Our character as an individual or a profession is most important, and there is nothing more critical to this than integrity." Integrity for society and the profession can only be sustained as a personal choice. So then, what criteria should this choice be judged by? An abstract system of rigid moral constraint should not apply. Life is too complex, too diverse to set forth absolute truth, which we know does not exist. Instead, continual, meticulous, critical self-examination of motive must be engaged. It must be questioned as to what are the conscious and subconscious reasons for action. To overcome self-deception and personal bias, one must be able to discriminate in his or herself and others various excuses for disputed choices. The French author Rochefoucauld wrote, "We should often feel ashamed of our best actions if the world could see all the motives which produced them." Unfortunately, well-intentioned appeal to consciousness is not always sufficient, particularly in matters of money, power, and fame. Since personal self-interest and bias is ubiquitous and perverts all judgment, egregious behaviors are familiar to us, but frequently we are unconsciously trapped by subtle and venial issues. Constant vigilance in any decision and action, weighing risk, consequences, damage to others, and yourself is required for the maintenance of integrity. We must always ask, what are our true motives? How will our actions be viewed by someone else? What are the consequences for others? Parenthetically, it's notable that choice at times may be near an equilibrium status, and it raises questions of who should make the choice and what is the correct procedure for choosing, not what the right choice is. Without being maudlin or trite, these ideas in some manner can be reduced to the golden rule, or more aptly to the earliest concept of the Chinese philosopher Mencius, who was the originator of the views of Confucius. His tenet, termed Ren, involves a sympathy or fellow feeling for those around you, another term which has been translated into humanity. Confucius himself expressed part of its meaning in the terms of reciprocity. Do not do unto others that which you would not want done to yourself. This is not about action, but it's about the result of action. And it certainly is not a guarantee of integrity, but it's a hope. As Sir William Osler stated, we are here not to get all we can out of life for ourselves, but to try and make the lives of others happier. Continual examination of one's motives is a difficult surveillance. What if the breach harms no one, is innocuous or inconsequential or trivial? What if it will never be discovered? Each breach, no matter how minimal, facilitates subsequent ones, diminishing resistance to reacting inappropriately in the future, particularly if the breach is reinforced by short-term gain, which decisively coarsens your discriminatory ability to discern the right course of action. Contrary to what could be argued, integrity is not facilitated but is threatened by the philosophy of utilitarianism, which confounds the individual's integrity and identity and induces him to accept external influences contrary to his own attitudes and commitments, which he endorses or feels deeply identified with. Utilitarianism has no moral value attached to it. It's a mere common sense approach to benefit under a shield of altruism. It's simply an evaluation of a course of action justified by the amount of good to the largest number of people, and often neglects any effect of integrity by not considering sufficient factors or analyzing all the consequences of the action. Therefore, Kant's categorical imperative is a more applicable and appropriate maxim, that one should act only whereby at the same time will that it should become a universal law. The medical profession is losing autonomy, self-regulation, and public trust, elements critical to the maintenance of our practice. The profession collectively does not always act on behalf of the community or the patients, and we must. We must have unconditional, steady commitment to the examination and questioning of our moral framework in which we practice and live. We must always remain vigilant of our biases, our motives, and our actions. I believe that the renewal of the value of integrity will restore the best for ourselves, our profession, and for our patients. With the time remaining, I would like to relate our strategic initiatives that were born out of recent planning retreats to our far less complex and controversial remaining values of scholarship, education, and leadership. This plan is the culmination of several years of effort begun by Ray Morgan, furthered by Susan McKinnon and by Bauman Gayuran. We have now converged on the most important goals and objectives inspired by our vision and mission statements. Funding of our academic scholarships is, next to this annual meeting, the most significant activity of the association. These grants were implemented in 1992 as career development awards with the intent of providing 50% salary and protected time annually for 3 years to young academic plastic surgeons. $55,000, $65,000, and $75,000 was awarded initially, but decreased to $30,000 a year after 1995. Even this low level of support has resulted in incredible leverage. As of this year, and I have to thank Bill Kuzan for these, he got this to me yesterday, the return on an initial $800,000 investment in our scholars has resulted in 2,100 peer-reviewed publications, over 440 additional grants for more than $117 million. That's an ROI, folks, of 140 to 1. All the scholars are academicians at leading medical centers. For some time, the lack of financial resources has threatened our adherence to the value of scholarship and education, manifested through our support of these scholars, which, along with the quality of this meeting, has been our unique, distinctive core characteristic. Funds supporting the academic scholarship have never reached the necessary corpus to be self-sustaining and have further been compromised by the recent economic and investment turmoil. As a result, at times these scholarships have been awarded on an inconsistent basis, forcing the board to seek and depend upon outside sources, mostly from industry, and on an ad hoc basis yearly or biannually. More important in the present day is the award is not sufficient to adequately protect the amount of time that's required by this grant. And as a result, there are many institutions in which the departments of surgery discourage these awards for that very reason. So our foremost priority in our strategic plan going forward is enhancement and development activities. In addition to this, there's been a continual confusion as to the exact purpose of the Academic Scholar Committee. Should it only raise money for existing funds, create new funds, support more scholars, other initiatives, seek industry money, or individual contributions? So to address these issues and to continue to distinguish this association in our scholarship and education, a development committee chaired by Dr. Jim Zins will be constituted by a bylaws change at the business meeting, thus partitioning the task of funding from that of allocation. The committee will be charged with constructing a multifaceted 5-year plan to raise $5 million to be completed prior to our centennial celebration. The precedents for this money will be to secure and increase the level of support to the existing funds and to endow, where feasible, potentially new scholar awards for the best and most creative minds among us. Remaining funds will be directed to projects in academic innovation, such as online teaching, surgical simulation, and diversification of this preeminent annual meeting. The annual meeting will be enhanced for members and non-members by the development of many aspects, including scientific papers, courses, scientific and technical exhibits, panel discussions, symposia, and alternative delivery mechanisms. Further advancement of this scholarly and educational focus will be achieved through new modalities of consensus conferences, monograph series, and online publications modeled after those of the NIH, the purpose of which will be to produce reliable, evidence-based information regarding quality, safety of practice on a routine basis, setting standards for our specialty. This initiative, under the auspices of an ad hoc publications committee, will be overseen and guided by Dr. Linda Phillips. The first consensus conference is already being planned and organized for the fall of this year, addressing through multidisciplinary input a topic of the use of prophylactic antibiotics in plastic surgery, and this is being spearheaded by Dr. Steve Arian. In the arena of leadership and partnership, both national and international, we intend to enhance and expand our presence. A new conjoint committee will be established by a bylaws change to expand opportunities and interaction with our sister society, the European Association of Plastic Surgery. Just yesterday afternoon, we had a very productive meeting with Julie and Moshe and have agreed on many things to facilitate our interaction with that society, including what will come up at the business meeting this afternoon. As our bylaws change for us, we will have a voting board member of URAPS, if you approve this, on our board and vice versa. This will include exploring the possibility of a conjoint international meeting sponsored by the association and URAPS, the first of which will hopefully be in Europe in 2015, and the U.S. in 2020, celebrating our 100th year of advancing plastic surgery. Lastly, under the direction of Dr. Tom Lawrence and Barry Noon, work will begin in preparation for our 100th anniversary celebration in 2020 on a plan to identify and chronicle the significance of the American Association of Plastic Surgery to plastic surgery over the last century. Carl Sandburg once wrote, "Nothing happens unless first a dream." Our destiny remains our choice. Continuing an unprecedented success for this association is your belief in this plan, your reaffirmation and rededication to our values. Our success and legacy will be grounded by the degree that each one of you, particularly the new members, engage and contribute to this strategic vision while adhering to our values, particularly integrity. You are all great plastic surgeons. However, this society cannot stand still. We must continue to invest in the future using our curiosity, imagination, and innovation. John F. Kennedy stated, "Our success to now is not a gift, it is an achievement." It's an achievement we must continue to meet and exceed. We must continue to outthink, outcreate, and outperform, continuing in perpetuity to develop this as the best plastic surgery organization in the world. We do big things. The estate of this association is very strong. We are poised for even greater accomplishment by you, the membership, supporting your board and officers in our unanimous endorsement of this plan by personally advancing both our values and these infrastructure initiatives so that we remain the premier plastic surgery organization and continue to lead our specialty as the greatest in medicine. The 16th century English playwright John Webster said, "Integrity of life is fame's best friend, which nobly beyond death shall crown it in the end." Of this I'm confident. We are often asked, what was our greatest accomplishment in plastic surgery? I've come to realize that it's not an office, a paper, a presentation, a technique, or a case. These are not ultimately important. What is important is that you complete your career and your life with your integrity intact. I believe I came to this profession with integrity. I've struggled, I've learned, and I've refined it despite many trials and tribulations, and I believe I've maintained it. I wish to thank those who have supported me and inspired me. First of all, to Dr. Ralph Millard, who instilled in me a very deep and strong love for reconstructive surgery. To Drs. Kenneth Given, Marty Robson, Bill Riley, Dave Smith, Baman Gayuran, Susan McKinnon, Bob Ruberg, Barry Noon, and countless others whom time does not permit me to recognize. Most of all, I thank my parents, wherever they are, for their love and support, and for instilling in me the difference between right and wrong. They taught me what it means to have integrity, and by their example served as my moral compass. As I leave this office, my challenge for each of you is to keep your integrity first and foremost in your mind. Apply integrity to every act of your daily life. Know when you are not acting with integrity and question your actions. Pledge that you will support scholarship and education, that you will become a leader. I believe that the renewal of our values and your vigorous support of this strategic plan holds great promise for you personally and for the future of this association. As we stand on the verge of the 100th anniversary, I am confident that the members of this organization will fulfill our mission and that the American Association of Plastic Surgery will continue to represent the highest level of performance in plastic surgery. Thank you for the privilege and honor of serving as your president.